Because they're using disk crypto because they want to be secure in their papers and privacy and so on, right? So I think it's maybe, you know, we could talk about it. We could talk about, I would like to talk you down from the ledge of doing that work. I think it's maybe, you know, you could drink some club mate with me and we could, you know, do something else. Seriously, you're a super smart guy. We should work on things other than forensic stuff. We could make a standardized thermite mercury switch that we could give away. It's something that detects the phase, the power shift and things like that. Just make it like really hard to do that. But anyway, I don't think I'm going to sell you on that.
So, okay. I use whole disk encryption. I shut down my laptop before entering the United States, at least 10 minutes before hitting customs. But I still can't protect against somebody storming into my hackerspace and taking my laptop. Have you had any conversations with like hardware vendors about maybe making RAM more volatile? Or otherwise like making this not a hardware issue?
I mean,
because that seems to be the only thing that we can do to get around it.
I think I talked with someone who's loosely related to some memory companies, and they realize it's a problem. There was an initiative basically around trusted computing to do some encrypted memory, and it almost happened, but it didn't for performance reasons and for cost reasons and I don't know, some other reasons. I wasn't there. But they decided not to do it. So the way to do it, I think, is to make it so you have tamper-proof hardware and you have some sort of like bulk device that implements something where the keys are stored. So like if you have Hikari and he has an FPGA and you convince him with enough Club Mate, because he's here, I think, you could maybe build a device where you could stream data in and out of it and the key is stored on it, and if you try to open it up, it's sort of like, you know, poor man, poor woman's tamper-proof data decrypting thing. I don't know, whatever. So basically, that's the best you're going to do, because people know that it's a problem and they want to keep the problem a problem, or it's not financially beneficial for them to solve the problem. And I've not heard of anybody that's actually working on, one, really caring about this for anything, and two, actually trying to solve it. So it's a little bit disappointing. And when someone storms your hacker center to read keys out of memory, you should be there and fight with them or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It sucks. It totally sucks. There isn't really anything good that will come of that. So I'm sorry.
While we're at the topic of tamper-resistant hardware, wouldn't it be easier to implement some sort of global reset security? Like we have about a dozen reset lines in every computer that set the hardware into a defined state, but not the memory. Wouldn't it be easier to make the memory add some sort of layer in the silicon that will just set everything to zero with an edge, a timing edge on a single line, so that when you say, I turn the computer on, all reset lines are triggered, so that everything is erased from the memory. Wouldn't that be the best course of action?
I think the best course of action would be to have tamper-proof chips with crypto keys and to have all of the easily removable chips encrypted, so that if you could extract the data from them, you just get line noise. So someone mentioned that their MacBook Air was like totally secure against this because the memory chips are like soldered in. But the funny thing about it is basically, unless you buy the extra CD-ROM, you can only netboot the machine to install the OS. So, I mean, even if we have like chips that are unremovable or have some sort of like physical trip, we can't really prevent someone from reading those bits out. And we can try, but I mean, someone will just be like Bunny, who will like get out a scope and trip, look at it one bit at a time or something like that. So, I mean, you could make it a little bit harder. Someone suggested 2 physical devices. One device is like a RAM condom. You would slide the RAM into the device and it would sit with the DIMM basically directly in it, and then it would fasten itself inside of the socket. And the idea was that you could use that to make it, you could epoxy it into the machine, never mind the heat problems, but if you could solve the heat problems, you could epoxy it into the machine or fasten it in some way, and then you could have it basically have a microcontroller that has a separate power supply that knows how to talk a basic protocol to the RAM chip that somehow erases it. So it's sort of like what you can do if you can buy a little bit of hardware. And there are probably some hardware hackers that can do it here. and probably pretty cheaply, and that might be kind of useful as a stopgap for your current hardware. And then, I mean, basically the other thing is that if you wanted to, on the attacker side, do this, you could build the same device, but instead of having a microcontroller that erased it, you could get like a 9-volt battery that kept the charge. So then you didn't have to worry about cooling it, and then you could just plug it into a main board and then turn the main board on and have a small circuit that would detect power, and when it powered on, it would stop powering the chip, and there would just be a split second. So you could build 2 devices like that. One would be sort of crappy, and the other would be great, depending on which side you're on, I guess.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
In the back?
On one of your slides,
It's like the voice of God. Where are you?
Sorry, here.
Okay, hi.
Okay. On one of your slides, you said that some of these guys suppose that disk encryption is not supposed to be good against somebody having physical access to the disk. Now, question: what is it supposed to solve then?
Well, so you know how computers get fast, like as time goes on? They are faster and faster. Disk crypto is a great way to sell more computers.
Okay.
I mean,
got that.
I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, when the people that said that were just bitter, I think, because of course it's supposed to protect you against at-rest data attacks. But what they didn't really think about was that at-rest data attacks might include 1 second after the hard drive has spun down, or 20 seconds after. They themselves had not figured out that the data was, at rest on the disk, and there was no more data being written out. But at the same time, the keying information was in an insecure place. There's no place you can put key information on a machine and not have an attacker have access to it with a certain window. And so when they were saying that, they were trying to claim that. I got a number of emails about that. And the emails I got about this actually are just like hilarious. I should publish them somewhere. Maybe WikiLeaks wants to take them. But basically, that's the idea that if you still have keying information laying around in memory, then it doesn't count as being at rest. Which is like saying, if you can somehow solve the problem of keys being easily accessible to attackers, our disk crypto is great. Which is like, well, yes, but we thought you solved that for us. Thank you very much. Doesn't work so well.
Yeah. Hi. That stripped pattern we see on the right of your slide, it's pretty characteristic of dynamic RAM that wasn't refreshed properly. Do you know what causes it?
Well, yes, it wasn't being refreshed properly, and then we reapplied power, and this is the pattern that was remnant. This is the memory bits that were left in memory. So what happened was that we wrote the image, the bitmap out exactly bit for bit in memory, and then we let the machine sit, and then this was the image on the right-hand side that was the set of bits after decay. And so this is, as the charge begins to leave each of the different cells, this is what's left over. And so this is just a visual way to understand your the data that's in memory, basically. And because it's a bitmap, it's a really easy thing to represent. And this was created by Alex Helderman at Princeton, who is like one of the best security researchers I've ever met. Very thorough guy. And he did this in like a weekend, basically. So does that answer your question?
What I wanted to ask is why some regions of the RAM obviously decay to 0 and others to 1.
Basically, from my understanding of this, I'm not an electrical engineer. It has to do with the proximity to different electrical parts of the memory. So it is basically, as you have decay, there is a curve, I guess, that sort of looks like this, depending on where the different bits are located next to the circuits that charge them and that they can drain through. I don't know if that answers your question. Maybe it does. Last question. That guy in the back with the Mac has been waving, he's like waded his way all the way to the front. Maybe you can combine your questions into one super question. Maybe. Or maybe we can take both if you're really quick.
Oh, thank you. The question is, it should be quite easy to to solve the problem by having an encrypted RAM controller. So you boot the machine, it makes via a shift register that is loopbacked. It takes some clock cycles and waits for some noise or something, and you get a one-time pad where you encrypt the RAM. And the next time you boot, you take the next pad, and so nobody knows what is the content of the RAM. And that's quite easy. If you have a FPGA, you can fit some core, maybe in Spark core or something, and you need a big FPGA, or maybe some company will build a RAM controller or something.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's possible that if you were to encrypt the memory, you could stop having to worry about people taking your memory because it's encrypted. And I think it's possible that you could hack something together like that. And if you do it, I could introduce you to some memory controller maker people that haven't figured out how to do that yet, I guess, even though it's their core business.
I think it's not the big effort. You go to opencores.org and get some DDR core, and then you have some fun with maybe you have to change some lines or add a module for the for the crypto thing. It is nothing special because you don't need IES or something. You just need a one-time pad on some time of pseudo-random. That is good enough.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, you'd really have to. When people do one-time pads, they don't necessarily do them correctly. I think there's a Schneier quote is like every time someone, I'm going to misquote him, but basically the gist is every time someone thinks they're doing a one-time pad, they're probably not. So.
Or you do an IES or something. You put the IES on the chip and then you approve.
Yeah, that could work. Maybe like real quick if there's another thing, that one other guy.
I just wanted to ask, how long do you think it will take until there will be made, those software changes will be made to the most popular open source implementations of full disk encryption?
I think that basically most of the disk crypto programs that are going to change have already changed, and they've done a good enough job. I mean, most disk crypto programs do zero the keys in memory. And I'm sure that even Apple will get their act together and zero the keys, but it won't really matter for them because they still leave the password. But, I mean, aside from that, I think that it's pretty much already done on that front. So I think that's it for questions. I have one other talk at the Congress, which I'm not really excited about this stuff anymore because I've spent the last while working with some people at my hack lab in San Francisco, Noisebridge. I've spent some time. This was originally done with Noisebridge members before Princeton and the EFF were involved, right when we were starting it. And we've been working on another project, which you may have seen. It's the Making the Theoretical Possible, Practical, etc. It's a totally ridiculous title, and it's completely vague. But I promise you that if you think that this is actually interesting, that talk will be far more interesting, and it has a pretty fun slide. And if you are here on the fourth day, you will understand why we did not announce anything else about it. And this is not to hype it. It's just that we were very concerned that we couldn't say anything about it beforehand. So still, I'm not saying anything. But if you were so inclined to come, it will be 1,000 times better than this, which is why I'm not so enthusiastic about it anymore. So thank you very much for making this possible. Okay.